a very warm welcome to all of you. I also welcome my fellow panelists. It's been very exciting to know about some of your work, particularly through this opportunity, this platform. And I think the topic for today's discussion is one that is very close to all our hearts. I think I can speak for everyone here. And we are going to, dive straight in. So I'm going to start with you, Rituparna. You've been somebody who's been deeply passionate about, free libraries, and you're an advocate for free community libraries, and you also run a community library in Assam. I wanted to understand from you, especially because, the concept of a free public library puts inclusivity right at the center and at the heart of it. So what is your idea of inclusivity, and particularly in the context of the work that you're doing? What does it mean to you?
Thank you. Zindabad, Satrangi Salam, Jai Bhim. Thank you for this panel and bringing me here. So if I talk about the context of my library work, I will start with why I do the library work I'm trying to do and why I advocate for free library. In India, we have right to education and we have free school education system. Especially in the primary or elementary education. But what India lacks is a free public library system. And just like right to education, all of us has right to read also, because reading is fundamental. And historically, if we look at our society or our country, then that power of reading, it doesn't go to everyone. It doesn't translate to everyone's hands because a lot of factors are there. Especially with historically marginalized community, Dalit community, Adivasi community, or community I belong to, transgender community. So for so many reasons, we are away from the journey of reading. What people talks about reading for pleasure, I don't think so. I read for only pleasure. It's for my right. And when I read, I can think. And then when I can think, I can assert my rights, and I can ask for more. So in this context, when in our country, there is not a system where books are available, accessible for everyone, irrespective of identity, the community you belong, the geography, everything. So there we believe, or I believe, that a free community library which can make possible access to books and access to readings. This is the context of my work, why I am doing. And this is where so many sathis from different corners of the country, like in Delhi, the community library project, who has wonderful libraries in, Delhi. There are sathis in Uttarakhand. We have sathis in Tamil Nadu. We have sathis in Karnataka. We have so many sathis in Manipur, in Assam, in Bengal, in Bihar, UP. So all of us, we are probably running small library, on our own. It is a responsibility, we took it on our own, but that is not enough. So this is where all of us, we are trying to say that India needs a free public library system so that every one of us has access to books and reading. So that's the reason we all are advocating for free public library system in India. And this is what we are trying to do.
Beautiful. I really love the word Sathi. That's what you meant, right? I mean, comrades.
Comrades, yeah.
How lovely. You've really opened up discussions around a lot of things, but I'm going to come back to you. Moving on to Dipen. Dipen, in a child's world, schools become a really, really vital space, in shaping their sense of identity, where they belong. And you've done some exciting work when it comes to education, through your school, through all the work that you do. So I want to know from you, from your own experience of working with children, of working in the space of education, how do you think has learning become more inclusive today? Has it become more inclusive?
Thank you for having me here, first of all. I think and I'm not just talking about my school, but school community in general. I think we're in a journey right now, and we have a long way to go if India is concerned. School is a place where we shape the students and their perspectives for life. And it is important that they learn how to understand what it means, not just to be included everywhere, but because that's the majority of people, but they also need to know that how it feels to be excluded. And when you do that, you tend to respect that so much more. Number one. Number two, as a school owner and as somebody who runs a few hundred people, to manage stuff is easier said than done. So I believe in this fact that individuals have habits and institutions have routines. So if you really want to inculcate inclusivity in schools, you need to have routines for an organization. And that's where the challenge is. Most schools in the country lack the the execution of inclusivity because as an organization, it is difficult to have routines. And if you crack that, then you can really do it well. For example, just to make it easy for everyone to understand what I mean by that is, how can we have, instead of, everybody likes the idea of having a grand annual day focusing on inclusivity. As good as it sounds and as amazing as it may look, it will not really have an impact on a student's life. That's what my opinion is. What will have an impact is the small everyday things that the child goes through. And that is what programs a child to think in a certain way. Coming from a different background, from a certain economic section of the society, or a community of the society, or with certain abilities or disabilities. If something feels normal to me, that will be my normal.
Oh, wonderful. Absolutely. Beautiful words. And again, you have triggered a lot of points where we will come back to. Before that, Sesh, you are a veteran in the publishing world and spent years working around textbooks, trade publishing books. And so you've seen like both the sides of the coin. Do you think children's content has evolved in the last, let's say, a decade? And if so, what are the changes that you see? Are books really inclusive? Are they talking about things that they should be talking about?
Sure. Thank you. How diverse is the world? Everybody knows how diverse the world is. But I would like to always talk about forums in these kind of sessions. Do something that's actionable, because we can do a lot of talk about diversity, inclusivity, blah, blah, blah. But I think we need to go to the core of what's happening, right? Let's first understand some basic ideas of what you're talking about, right? One is, I'm a student when I'm in the classroom. When I'm with the parent, and if I'm particularly 11 years and below, I get to read what my parents ask me to do because I don't have purchase power. And then when I go to the next level, I become an independent reader. That's probably when I'm reading for pleasure, because that's my choice of choosing the book that I want to read, or she or he want to read, right? Now, my opinion, we are probably 1%, 2% there. Why? If you've got 230 million children going into the Indian school system, not many people know that a mere 22% is in the private sector, which means the balance 160 odd children are reading books that are published by the government. So, who is the largest publisher in this country? Continues with the government. It's the DSCRTs at the state level, the NCRT at the national level. I'm not saying private publishers shouldn't be doing it. Private publishers can make an impact. But the only, I would say, publishing community which can start probably NBT, CBT, NCRT, DSCRT, we need to look at those people, because that's the first ever time the child is doing something called reading. And when you talk about diversity, it's extremely difficult. Let's understand that. Let's be very clear. It's not easy, right? Because there is gender, there is urban, rural, there is inclusiveness, there is people left out, tribal. This is one part, right? When a child is reading a book, he or she is thinking of that person that they're reading about, right? It's extremely difficult. How many, can you put a textbook where 40 people can relate themselves to that book? Tough. But you look around and say, okay, what is the best I can do? I can't just leave it completely thinking it's not possible, right? Now, look at the author. Most of the writing from the author is a sort of a personal emotion. It's also they want to write saying, oh, I need somebody to read my text this way that I'm writing. Is that going to gel with the student or the child who's reading it? So author emotion, reader emotion, and bringing the inclusivity, we can go on and on. But I say those are my first initial responses before I respond to other questions. Thank you.
You've actually again opened up, thoughts around so many things that come to mind. I mean, as a publisher who again, works on the trade side of things. I mean, we create books for reading pleasure. We create literature in the country, and I think a lot of groundwork has happened, especially with publishers like us. I don't say just Penguin Random House, but there are just so many children's publishers doing significant work in, bringing diverse stories to the fore. Stories about diversity, stories about the LGBTQ community, stories of coming out, stories also from, lower, from the other strata of the community, But again, I think the challenge that one faces is about the dissemination of that diverse content, right? So even publishers, who do we need to disseminate that content? You need booksellers who are, making these books available in a bookstore, or you need schools that are really adopting it, if not in the textbooks, but let's say even in the recommended reading space or in the supplementary reading space. In fact, also coming back to textbooks, a lot of times we get requests for, let's say we want to use an excerpt from one of your books, right? And I think I've seen some change, like from moving on to from classics that now that were a part of textbook learning to possibly more important ideas now. So, I've seen that, works by Paro Anand, who really writes about radical things, or Lavanya Karthik, who's written about, let's say, a disabled boy. Those are the kind of stories that are also getting adopted by certain schools. So some educational publishers, when they come to us for licensing opportunities, when they want to, use our books in the textbook spaces, I've seen some shift, which is really positive. But we've only scratched the surface. There is just so much that needs to be done. And like Sesh, you were saying, right? I mean, you need the booksellers, you need the government, you need an NBT to support, because these are the books that will really sell in volumes, right? So you really want this content to reach out to as many readers as possible. And as a publisher, I feel like we do a lot of work around diverse content, but it's still seen as niche. It will always be niche. Why is it not? Why is it not a part of the mainstream conversations yet? And I think that's really, I wanted to open up your, invite thoughts on this. And how can we disseminate this content in schools, in libraries, in the textbook publishing space, so that it becomes more normalized and accepted, and that becomes a way of life?
I think it has to be a collaboration between the publishing industry and the schools. We need to come together to discuss a little bit more about what is, in a way, the mood of the country. And it has to change. It has to be dynamic, because it changes. For example, the political environment of the country, in a way, dictates largely to what the mood of the country is, as I see in families of my students, right? For example, so I'll just give you a short example wherein one student, and this is a personal anecdote. So one student came up and he said that this particular student is targeting my community. We belong to a certain minority. And it was a major blow for us, because we've been preaching this equality and everything. And then it comes up and we're all a little surprised. One of my teachers is here as well, and we handled it together. So we wanted to know what can we do, because the family does have an impact on it, and the family is impacted by the political mood of the country. So how do you change your textbooks? How do you change the content that you have according to the times? And that is one thing, as per me, is very important. How we handled it is a little different, because we wanted to keep it subtle and not blow it out of proportion. So we decided, okay, let's maybe give a signal to everyone rather than one student and singling them out. We put up posters in the corridor, hanging posters that talks about it, but in a very subtle manner, to give that child and others a sign that this is how it should be and not the other way. So I think coming to textbooks and dissemination of information, it has to be a collaboration and a continuous change of the information and text that goes in.
Sure. And on that note, Rituparna, I mean, wanted to ask you, like, when you are making the curation for the library, and especially like, giving access to children from all backgrounds and, different needs, let's say, what is your thought around it? How do you go about it? Making the content, firstly the curation, and then making it accessible to everyone.
Thank you. Maybe, and I was listening to both of my co-panelists, and it is really wonderful to hear, and I have some thoughts around it also. When I was saying that about being independent reader, so we talk about nurturing readers. So just by alone, you cannot be an independent reader. You have to have an ecosystem around you so that you can be nurtured as a reader, and you will be able to make choice of your books or choice of your reading, whatever in coming days. That is one way to look at. And I really like the way you said about the collaboration way to look at, and what you were saying about it also. I see it's that publishing industry, which is a more about dissemination of information to our society, like the whole book publishing. I see school, library, author, illustrator, librarian, teachers, educator, and publishers all are equal stakeholders or shareholders of this. That nobody is in one of the power position, or nobody is just in need of something, but everyone has equal responsibility among us. So that the industry, which is so central to disseminating information to our society, we can do it together very mindfully and with so much of thinking around it. And this is where I will come back to the particular question you asked about the curation. I believe curation is a political act. And this is what I said yesterday also, and this is what you said, this is what you said also. But I will just say very, direct way, the curation is a political act. Whatever we are doing and we are trying to nurture with your children, we have to do it in a thoughtful manner. For example, the situation you mentioned about in your school, it is not just the textbook, but also the kind of books we have around us, the kind of books publishers are publishing, and we are being able to bring it to our libraries, maybe the classroom library, the school library, the free community library in the community level, and also the programs we are designing and conversations we are designing around it. Because reading is not just an individual act. I do not believe that reading is an individual act. Reading is a collective act. When we read collectively and discuss about it, talk about it, then we can definitely see shift in mindset, shift in conversation, shift in narrative. For example, you talked about the current political mood also. I will just give one or two examples of some books in some of the ways. One book is called Ismot's Eid from Tulika Publication. It's a wonderful book to talk about diverse culture, diverse ways of community and belongingness. Then there are books around disability. Why Are You Afraid to Hold My Hand by Tulika again. Then I Did Not Understand. That is also one book to talk about diversity with children. There are books by Eclabia, Gutli to Pari Hai. It talks about the non-binariness of someone, a wish of someone, how we can bring those. From Pratham, we have Rainbow Boys and Rainbow Girls. Girls Wants Azadi, which is by Kamla Vas in both the book, and wonderful illustration by Priya Korean. So these kind of books, with how we can bring it more to the children, how we are curating books in our classroom library, school library, or in community library. I will say many big schools I have been into, because they get excited when they know that I am a library worker. They get excited to show their library, but the purchasing of their books happens through in a very random way. It's not a thoughtful way. I saw so many Cinderella books and so many others ways with a pathetic illustration. Mane, you can have a very good storytelling with Cinderella, with thought-provoking ways of having conversation, but just don't bring some roadside publishers, making something which is just everything is pink, 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 and which is also not even mindful illustration. Like you are not even hiring a good illustrator to illustrate your books. So then this is where curation will work. This is where we need to work closely with the publishers, because they are publishing wonderful books. As I said, Pratham is publishing wonderful book, Tulika, Ektara, Eklavya, and they are our sathis in the free library movement, I must say. All of them stand in solidarity with us, give big discounts, give books to us, fund our work like HarperCollins, DK Books, Hassett, all of them, they fund our different libraries also. Zuban, they give us 50% discount. Tulika, they give us 50% discount. Different ways to all the library. So, and also we try to bring the stories from the ground, how children are responding to the books, which is wonderful books the publishing industry is bringing to us. So there is a correlationship, and then equal shareholder, because you are publishing books and we are bringing it to more of the members in the community, in the readers. One thing we have to be very clear, that not every one of our people can buy books. For example, if you have affordability of buying books also, you draw good salary also, still you go to book fair, like Delhi Book Fair is coming. So many of you will visit. I will also visit. But every time I will try to curate books for my list to buy, I'll definitely look at my budget and my pocket. Right. So then you will not be able to make your choice of it. So without thinking of it, it's library, it will be able to do it. That is why we need thousands of libraries, lakhs of libraries, just like we have schools, so that all the books you are publishing, wonderful, diverse books, we can bring it to the community where these books are supposed to go. So this is what I look at curation work, how we are, bringing diversity to the community, because the books which are getting published, we can bring it to the grassroots, to every children in our country.
Wonderful. Absolutely. You mean, you said such, you said it. You said it.
Thank you.
And in fact, one of the things that you mentioned about art in children's books and representation in children's books. Do you think things have changed? I mean, you of course gave examples of certain books where a lot of thoughtful work is not going on. But on the other spectrum, I know a lot of thought goes, at least when we create the books, a lot of thought goes into, commissioning the art, briefing the art, and exactly what you don't, you always ask, what is the purpose of this book? Who is it reaching out to, right? And the idea is, it stems from the place that, all children need to find themselves in the books they read. The whole idea of books being relevant, characters being relevant. And I think, and again, this is a question that I would like to, ask you all. I think we have moved away from Disney-inspired characters, very homogenized and so on, to things that are much more relatable and relevant now. Like I said, I see that in some of the books that we work, we do see, children with spectacles, children with disabilities, with curly hair and different skin colors, as they should be. Right? Because it is about them. The books belong to them. They need to see themselves in it. But moving on, I wanted to also ask you about maybe children's media and entertainment. Do you see that children's media captures the true diversity of our people, of our children today? Any thoughts on that? Anybody?
I think what we recently did a research on children's reading habits and what do they read and what things happen. And I think all of us should come to some understanding and acceptance that as long as the content is consumed in a manner that the children wants to consume, they are still reading. So I know all of us are pushing books. JLF is all about books. But I see increasingly the research shows that you show them a YouTube and show them a book, they're going more towards the YouTube rather than the book. That's one. Second, the research also shows that almost 60% of the content that is consumed now is in Indian languages, no longer in English. So the consumption at that age group level, 40%, has now gone down to English and not, is in increasingly Indian languages. So I'm not saying take the book away from the child or take the away from, but the environment in which they're growing up and the environment in which so much of pressures are coming from technology companies, there is traction. For instance, it has happened in the food industry, right? If I go to a Chennai restaurant today after 9 o'clock and ask for a idli, he would say, sorry, we have pizza, but idli is over by 9 o'clock. And this is, proper South Indian restaurant. I mean, you see more restaurants serving Mexican food or other food than you're getting the local food. But so there is, I think we need to look at a portion of our thinking should be what is the human behavioral analysis and pick it up from there in terms of what content we read. I just want to go back to a couple of things you mentioned about what I think as actionable. I mean, obviously today we're talking about inclusivity in children's publishing, but my aspiration is in the long term, can we have inclusivity across publishing, not just confined to children's publishing, right? So what are the things we can do? One, when the government came up and said, let's put sexual harassment in workplace as a law, everybody has to have a committee, everybody needs to do this, everybody knows this, fear. What did we do? Everybody set up a committee, made sure the committee made recommendations. Why can't we make sure that every publisher has a diversity desk in their office and every content that they publish go through this desk for sign off? Simple. It's a cost of maybe what? Another 5 lakh CTC or 4 lakh CTC. In any case, books prices are going up. Put that 5 lakhs also into that book price. No problem at all. That's one. Second, schools. Take schools. Let's talk about the bookseller first. We have become a commercial world, undoubtedly, right? If I want my book to be displayed in the airport, I pay 15,000 rupees for the rack. If I want my W.S. Smith to put my book right on top as number one bestseller, some of them are artificial, I pay 25,000 and my book will be right on top, right? If you want space for inclusivity, are they going to give it to you? No. Second, how many booksellers have the ability, as you were saying, to assess the book, whether it is diverse or not? I'm not demeaning the industry. I'm saying ability, capacity, right? They are not going to decide. As long as there's a danda, there's a 40% margin, there's a bestseller, it'll be on the rack, right? So bookseller is going to be a long drawn game. But what can happen in schools, the school can definitely have a rack which talks about books chosen with a clear mind on diversity inclusivity. Can't you put only one rack with 100 books? Can the librarian be trained to say, this is your budget, provided you spend X amount of money on books on diversity? Simple ones. These are not big asks. I'm not asking you to increase your budget from 1 lakh to 2 lakh. I'm saying within the 1 lakh, can you say 10% must, I insist as a head of the institution, should be spent on diversified books? So I'm saying these are some of the actionables we can do. It is possible. Parent-teachers meeting. We have such rich schools. I mean, there are schools who charge you 10 lakh per annum fees, right? And they hold parent-teachers meeting. Can we tell the parents saying we are now holding an exhibition of publishers who publish books on diversity inclusivity? As I said, there are 5-6 fantastic publishers, I don't want to name them, who do this work bring them in and say, parents, buy one copy and donate it to the school. 100 rupees, 120 rupees. Tell them, come to the nothing else. You're just going to buy what you think other children or your student or your child should read. I'm donating to your school. Even if you spend 10,000 rupees on that PTA, look at the amount of money or the books that the children will be, and then this goes into that rack that's already demarcated for this purpose, right? So I thought these are simple ideas. We should talk to many people, talk to communities, and discuss this and implement it.
Shesh, can I interject? I mean, you have a very interesting point, but I have a slightly different view from my experience. Yeah. So if I may, what I believe is when you demarcate, when you have a certain place for a certain thing, over a period of time, it just stands there and loses its value. That's what my analysis is. For example, a lot of people are interested, as you said, that diversity and inclusivity has always been a niche. It's never become mainstream. If you bring that to a school ecosystem, that's the case there as well. So even that rack is going to be read by a niche audience. And that is the problem that from my lens, I need to solve is how can I sprinkle diversity and inclusivity in every part of the daily routine of the school.
In the ecosystem.
In the ecosystem itself. Rather than have one spot in there. How can I subtly throw it in there and have just like this stage setup you have. If you had one bulb shining out too bright, it would after a while pain everyone's eyes. But right now you have so many light dim bulbs that look beautiful together, and they become a part of the decoration of the stage. And that's what inclusivity to me looks like in a school's ecosystem, rather than having one.
Sure. Just
I
to
think, yeah, we,
just add the 2 points, because media you asked about. I mean, Netflix you look at Disney Plus. There is now, I'm just looking notes at Mira is there, Royal Detective is there, Pablo, which is I think Colombian culture, that's there. So people are in the media realizing that consumption has to increase.
right.
Or shorter beam is there.
One, any
One
thoughts
thing,
on
yeah,
best
definitely.
practices and, the actionable points that one can.
Yes. One thing we can definitely see diverse collections are coming, books are coming. I use this Denji word like FOMO now. Meso FOMO happens. Why I did not get in my childhood? Only NBT and CBT books were there. Why I did not knew about other publishers, or I did not get those books. So I can see diversity coming in different books. Like from Pratham, this book I really love. This book Anand. It's a wonderful book by Pratham. Then there are other books by Katha, Tulika. It's especially with children books I can see. But as you say, with diversity and inclusion, from all the aspects, it has to be part of every program. What you just said about that there should be a desk, at least with the language, with the aspects, with the characterization of character in novel or short story or anything. Are you looking at from that lens or not? Then every books goes through. That is definitely one. One is I will definitely say to bring all of this to the grassroots, we have to stand in solidarity together. And those solidarity also is not that I support you, but showing up and coming together that this is our shared responsibility. The publishers, the schools, the free library, community library, and making government accountable. That how we can advocate for different spaces which will nurture reader, which will bring reading more to the community, so that of course our book sellings will also grow, and books can go more to the community. That has to be there. So this is where I will definitely request through this platform to all the publishers, keep in be in the solidarity of what we are trying to do, everyone. Fund our work also in that way, so that we can bring this work to the children at the grassroots, and also writing about the work, why we need free public library system, why we need more library, why reading needs to be nurtured through community institutions at the community level. Also advocating for a public library system in India, that we need a policy. So if we all of us can say it together, then we will be able to do it. And also that's how we will be able to nurture reader through a diverse lens. So this is what I feel. Probably I'm saying in a long-term way, but then with small tangible action that we can reach to that long-term vision, that for sure.
Absolutely. And from a short term, and the easiest thing, I think, who are the influencers? I think from a child's perspective, it really starts with the parents. And they are the ones who are making these choices. They don't shy away from buying a 300 rupees burger. But we have seen when it comes to books, even in the book fair, they look at the price point and just put it back, and they are asking for discounts. And it's really a blow to publishers and to everyone, the whole community of authors, illustrators who are really trying to push the needle. So I think it really has to start from us, all of us.
I think you said it in a manner that, as a student, I'm dealing with a gatekeeper all the time, right? The parent is a gatekeeper for some time. When I go into the classroom, I don't decide what I need to read there. The teacher is a gatekeeper. So I'm not saying the gatekeeper is not bad or good, but I'm just saying we need to find a way to overcome this, gatekeeper methodology or the process, and see how the child can get what he or she wants to read. I would say that.
Absolutely. We don't give children their due. I think they're smarter than we think. So it's really been an invigorating conversation, and we've, only scratched the surface. This can go on and on. And I think the idea is to make all these conversations more mainstream, so that we don't have to have a panel to discuss this. But yeah, we have some 5 minutes, maybe? 5 minutes?
Questions?
Do we have time for questions?
Yeah, we do.
We have? Oh, excellent.
Hello.
If you could please introduce yourself and.
Hello, my name is Urvi Dhonde. I'm actually volunteering at JLF and I'm a student at Symbiosis Pune. This session has been really, really insightful. And there was one thing that all of you touched upon, but I had a question related to that only. So growing up, my mother read a lot of books to me, and a lot of them were like fairy tales, like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, etc. And in all of those books, it was, even though like it was the early 2000s, still the woman was always portrayed as the damsel in distress. But I kind of feel like a lot of changes are occurring now. So this question is to all of you. Do you think there are changes happening in the narrative, especially when it comes to fairy tales? Because I kind of feel like that's the first sort of story or the books that children read while growing up. So that is the question that I have.
I think there are already so many books about, where fairy tales are subverted and it's seen from the lens of the other, and sometimes even from the other gender. There are already books around, and I think Indian publishers have also tried, but sadly, I think the information has not reached because it has not really been, it hasn't probably sold very well. But yeah, there are, there is a lot of work around subverting narratives as we know them. If anybody wants to.
I just want to say that I think it was a great example that she shared that most of us must learn when she talks about her mother reading books for her. I think the key in reading is the 3 stages, which some of you may know, but I thought it would be important to mention it, right? It's about read for me, read with me, and read along, and read alone. So young parents must go through this process of read for me, read with me, read along, read alone. That's the way you basically then what happens, the child will always want a book saying, come, I want to read it, right? So I think you made a very important point, and you had a very lucky mother that read books for you.
One thing I just want to mention to this with fairy tale, one thing, we need to read certain books with children. Also this fairy tale, folk tale, all of it, it may be violent, it may be the way around to look at the society, but that was the reality of those time of society. So children should have an opinion about it also. That what do you think about it? It was 100 years back, it was like that. 200 years, it was like that. But what do you think? So reading, that's why I said it's not a lonely journey. It should be a collective journey where our children can have a discussion about it. Like so many people talk about retail or folktale, and I really do not appreciate so much about it, because folktales are, those may be full of violence. It may be, but it really reflects about that society that time it was. But what is our shared responsibility? To have an open conversation with children about it. That what was the problem you identified? This is where we will be able to nurture reader and also nurture thinkers. Because reading is not just something that you get pleasure. Reading is an act to think. So we believe reading is thinking. So this is why we need to nurture reader in that way. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Rashmi Saran, and I had been running a nursery. I can keep sitting or should I stand up? Okay. So I had been running a nursery school since more than 33 years. And I had been discouraging parents from reading these English Cinderella or where they portray cruel mother, cruel aunt or anything like that. And in my childhood, we used to read a lot of Champak, which is not there. Champak was a publication. And they used to have a lot of stories about wild animals and talking of the animals and their feelings and all that. But none of these books are available now. I live in Allahabad. I run a nursery school there, and I had been reading all this Pratham and all. But I had talked to Pratham, and I asked them, "Could you not come to Allahabad? Could you not have a publication, your distribution there?" There's only one bookseller, which is Wheelers there. They have few books of Pratham. So I had asked parents to demand from Wheelers to bring more of these books. But what my main question is inaccessibility of books, children's book in Allahabad, totally. Book fairs to bhul jaiye. And there was one library where we used to go in our childhood and even in adulthood that has been closed. So Mahakumbh to zarur wahan ho raha hai, but children's books are not there. And my children, Allahabad children are totally deprived of these children books, which can open their mind and imagination.
So, ma'am, in the interest of time, I'm really sorry to cut you short, but I do want to say that Champak books are available. And in fact, we, Puffins collaborated with Champak to bring some of the stories, and they are getting launched at the ongoing book fair that's starting tomorrow. Okay. I know it's not a practical solution, but the book fair is one place where every publisher curates and, sort of showcases their entire range of books. So that's really worth going with children, because that is really where you really get to see the diversity of content that is available in the country. So I would urge you to do that. Can we invite some more questions, please? Do share your name.
I'm Dr. Chavi Gandhi. And what I truly feel is that a good session makes you think. And there was one particular sentence by Dipen sir that actually made me think that however number of books a child reads, it eventually comes upon to how they're experiencing in real life, which says a lot about lack of representation in adult community of literature, where we lack certain books like Red, White and Royal Blue, or media like Schitt's Creek that normalizes LGBTQ community. It's about the normalization of inclusivity. It's not just the inclusivity. Do you think if we have such media, so it can impact adults and in chain reaction to that to the children also?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have a trickle down effect, because the society is shaped when everything around you is in a certain way. For example, if I see, as you talked about Schitt's Creek, it not just about LGBTQ community, but also about normalizing not being rich, right? So why can't that be normalized well? So why isn't that inclusive? If you study in a certain school that has a higher fee structure, and you have students who are 25% part of your classroom who do not belong to a very rich community, how can we include them as well? That's also part of inclusivity. So how can we create an environment, and that comes along with the teachers and the parents, to come together and make them feel comfortable? And that's how the students are going to learn, because the children are shaped by the ideologies and actions of teachers and parents. So I totally agree with you that it has to be a trickle down effect from top to bottom, and media, books, everything is going to contribute to it in the same manner.